we're here with our 5th Strength and Stories interviewee, Makenna. Makenna is actually on our executive committee, and we're really excited to interview her today. Okay.
Yeah, I guess we'll get started. So, Makenna, can you share a bit more about your journey with bilateral retinoblastoma and how it all began?
Yeah, so I was 4 months old when I was diagnosed with bilateral retinoblastoma. So that was cancer in both of my eyes at the time. It was kind of random. Like, it wasn't a doctor or anything who noticed. My mom was giving me a bath when I was really young, and I think she was like taking a digital photo of me. And by 4 months, like the tumor had progressed so much that when you take like a flash photo, you could actually see it in the photo. So like, you know, when you get like that like red eye in a photo, you like wouldn't have gotten that. You could see like the tumor in the photo. So I think that she'd been like, okay, like that's kind of like, it was just kind of like a white glare. She always describes it as like a cat eye look.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to like our children's hospital in Ottawa, and they referred us to Toronto. So we very quickly went to Sick Kids in Toronto, and I've been going there ever since for annual appointments. We went there, and they pretty much said that it had it was in both of my eyes at the time, and progressed so much that if they didn't remove my right eye, that it would get to my brain before Christmas, and I would not live past Christmas. So I had my eye removed. I actually think it might have been on Halloween when I had it removed. And it was small enough in my left eye that they were able to remove the tumors without having to remove the eye itself. So I was given a prosthetic eye at 4 months. I'm also like my parents' first child, so this like not only are they like they have their first child, and then like 4 months in, they're dealing with like literally the like unspeakable, and just like so like brand new for everyone. Like they were learning just as much as I was.
Wow.
So for the first year of my life, I was doing laser therapy and cryotherapy, and doses of chemotherapy as well. And I was cancer free by, I think it was June that I was officially cancer free. To this day, I still go back to Sick Kids every year. I think it's every 2 years now that I'm older, because it is a children's hospital, but I still go back there to do like blood work every year, hearing every year, just like to keep an eye on those like secondary cancers that you can develop. And just like every phase of my life, like you go through different ages where like you're more prone to this type of cancer or this type of cancer. Now I'm at the age where like the conversations are more like, when you want to start your own family, like this is what to look out for. So it's one of those things where like it's not something I really remember because I'm so young, but like I've just something I've always lived with. But like since then, I still am like very much impacted by it. But yeah, I think that one of the things that I want to mention, so when I think the very first time, like after I had my eye removed, they pretty much, so they give you a prosthetic eye, and it's like you get a brown one or you get a blue one. It's just like a like filler until we got in touch with my ocularist, Daphne, who I've also been seeing ever since 20 years ago now. But she's also in Toronto, so I'll go to see her, and I think there's like only a few of them in Canada, so people like travel from like BC to go see Daphne. She's designed some of the eyes in the Jurassic Park movies.
Whoa,
which
that's
is like
so
a fun
cool.
fact. Like at Universal Studios, she's like, you can like some of the like displays like just has her name on. I'm like, well, she also made my eyes.
Oh, wow.
But I think one of my favorite stories, like just through all of it, was like obviously like I mentioned, like my parents' first kids, so all of it was like very upsetting, and all my family in Guelph and Waterloo were all there to support them at the time. But they brought me home after the like initial surgery back to like a hotel, and in the elevator, like I had just been given this like temporary prosthetic eye, and like I said, it's a blue one or a brown one. There's no detail. It's just a blue circle with like black dot. So it obviously doesn't look. I was like 4 months old, so and they're in the elevator and it like fallen out, and they're like, oh my god, I have no idea what to do. And like now, obviously, it's like it wouldn't just fall out. Like it's like we obviously know what to do. I think there was like a woman in the elevator, and she just like said to my parents, like, your daughter's just so beautiful. I think that was like one like a really special moment for them. Like they've always told me that, because it's like with everything going on, it's just nice that there's like people like that out there. So Yeah.
Oh,
Long
that's
story
really
short,
nice.
But
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you sort of touched on this in our first question, but since you were like so young, obviously, when you underwent that treatment, how have you sort of come to understand like that experience now and that sort of thing?
yeah, I think like over time, like now, like I'm turning 21 this year, so it's been something that like I've always lived with. One thing I've tried to remind myself is it's never something I've had to like adjust to, because I don't know life without it. I always have known life with 50% vision, and like things that I do, I don't even notice like someone else would like have to think about. Like for me, like I always say, like I'm like checking my blind spot, because like I'm missing so much peripheral vision that I just think growing up, like playing sports, or like I danced competitively, I cheered competitively, so like staying in sync with people where you're supposed to kind of use your peripherals to see like what people are doing, or just like even when I'm at work, like I'll just kind of have to like take a double look to like not bang into people. But yeah, I think like I said, it's not something I've ever had to like adjust to. It's something I've always lived with. But throughout my childhood, like through my teenage years and now young adult years, like there are just different challenges that come with that. So like as a kid, yeah, like I said, like sports is always a really big thing. And like also like my parent, like obviously I'm very, very grateful for my parents, because we've always been told like when I was younger, like my vision on my good side is great, but I've always had to wear glasses like for protection reasons as a kid, and I used to hate it as a kid, because I'm like, like I don't want to wear glasses, like I just look so bad, but like
like the sports glasses that are
yeah,
like
so like I feel like I don't really have much to say about like because I was so young when I like underwent treatment, like all in the first year of my life, and the only like surgery I actually remember was in grade 3. I had to have like an implant replaced. So that was like, I feel like that's like the first memory I have of like really, yeah, I feel like grade 3. I can't remember past like grade 3 of like dealing with just like kids at school and stuff. And so like I had this surgery, I was like out of school for a little bit, and then when I got back there I had to wear an eye patch, and I remember being like, it felt like the end of my life, because it's like it's the most like obvious thing. So I just remember like obviously when you're like what 7 or 8 or 9 in grade 3, like kids don't have any filters, so they're just like, oh, what's wrong with you, like what happened? And so yeah, I think that I don't really remember like much when I was younger, like undergoing any kind of treatment other than in grade 3. But like what I do remember and what I can say is that like throughout, again, like I said, childhood, teenage years, and young adult life, like there are those different challenges that come. I used to like hate, like as a kid, one thing I'll always remember is when I go up to like my friends' cottages, my mom would be like, you have to wear goggles when you tube, because God forbid like the water hits the wrong way and your eyes in the lake, like that would be like super, like obviously in the big picture, like that wouldn't be great, like I'd be mortified if that happened. But I just remember like again when I'm like 7 or 8 and like all the like girls at the cottage like, well, like are you really so scared to get water in your eyes, like so it's like things like that, and like you'd be surprised like how many, even like when I got my first job at 14, like how like an adult coworker would be like, I don't want to upset you, but like what's like wrong with your eye? I'm like, well, there's nothing wrong with it, but like, and I feel like now I'm in a place in my life where like I'm generally pretty open about it, like especially within the past 3 years, like being at Queen's, like it's very rare that I come across someone who's like not supportive and not like, most people are like pretty amazed by it. Just because a lot of people are like, oh, I would never notice, and obviously every day I notice, like it's something that like sticks out to me. But yeah, I think that like when I got older, like something like driving was a really big thing. Again, just like adjusting to peripheral vision and like depth perception's just a little bit off, so like sometimes my parents will be like, oh, like the red light's like right there, and I'm like, okay, like give me a second. I'm like 1 sec behind you. But, like yeah, just little things like that where I'm like, it's those times when I notice it. But like I said, it's never been something I've had to like adjust to. Like I've always known life like this. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting too. I feel like also like having like your story kind of told to you like through like
That's the
your
thing.
parents
It's like I
and
feel
stuff.
like all the other stories like that you guys have done, like they have a lot to say about the actual like experience, like going through cancer. And it's like I feel like I haven't experienced it, but it's like everything after I've experienced.
100%.
Yeah. And
So
I feel
it's
like a lot of
it's
people
very
like
different.
a lot of people like don't really like, yes, like the cancer is like a really big challenge, but like I don't think a lot of people like realize the challenges that come after it, and like
Yeah.
it's really interesting to hear like your experiences.
Yeah, and I think like as I've gotten older, like when I was a kid, like I used to be like when someone would ask me like what's wrong with like your eye or like why, or like, you know, like when I was younger before that implant, it was like it moved super easily. So like if, you know, like I touched it, like moved, and I'm like, well, why are you looking up? Like, and I'm like, oh no, like I used to be mortified, but like now it's just like I'm kind of in a place where like my close friends and I like joke about it, or like it's not something I'm like not willing to talk about, but because I think that now like most people are pretty respectful about it. But you'd be surprised like how many like adults in my life I've encountered who'd be like, don't cry, but like what's wrong? And I'm like,
that's so frustrating.
Yeah, that's just like ignorant, but it seems like you have a really positive and like comfortable and confident outlook on it.
Which honestly wasn't till recently. Like I feel like maybe like just up until like honestly like at Queens, like being part of this club has been like a huge thing. Like it was honestly so random. Like one of my housemates I think followed the Instagram account like this fall, and she was like, I was like, oh, I really want to join a club, like do something more. Well, I'm in third year or whatever, and she's like, oh, like there's this one, and like it was so random that I signed up for her, and then once I got on, I was like, oh my god, like this is just so great to have like such a supportive group of people, and everyone has like a different story to tell. So it's been really great. Like it's really, I feel like it's made it so much easier to be like so open about it. Like I could never imagine like posting that on social media until this year.
Yeah, and for our viewers, Makenna was our Survivor of the Month too, which is obviously like that's a big step, like going to tell your story.
I would not have imagined. Like I did it like in elementary school. Like, I remember like a huge thing was in my grade 6 class. I don't know if you guys like had those mandatory speeches you had to do.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I like did mine on cancer generally, and like there's like one little tidbit in there that like I talked about myself, but it was in French, so I don't think like really anyone that listened knew what was like actually being said. But other than that, like I've never like it's never been something I've been like
no, it takes a lot of courage to share your story.
Yeah,
I think we already kind of like talked about this, but if you have anything to add, our next question is, were there any moments in your childhood where you become more aware of the differences between your experience and those of your peers?
Yeah, I guess I already kind of talked about it, like sometimes it's more obvious than others, but yeah, I think that like one big thing would be like when I played sports, and like even last night we were like playing an intramural volleyball game, and I was like, gotta like take a double check before someone like rams into me, and just like things that are a bit of a learning curve in terms of like I said, like driving was one thing, because it's like, well, if you don't see a pedestrian coming, like that's obviously gonna be an issue. But for the most part, like I think growing up too, like my parents have just always like I've always been surrounded by my parents and family and friends who've been like, you're so strong and you're so resilient and like you can do like anything. And I've always been like a very high achiever, and like always done like competitive sports, and like done really well in school, and like tried to take part in like extracurriculars. So like it's not something that I let like get in the way of things, but it's also something that like doesn't really need to. And I think as I've gotten older, I've been like super grateful that like it could be so much worse. I could have lost both eyes. I could have not lived, and it's like that's what I try to remind myself in those times where it seems like it's not great. Like because I notice it every day, and like I know that like my housemates and like my family friends, like I would never notice, like but like when I look in the mirror, it's the first thing I see. But I think that for the most part, again, like I said, it's not something I've ever had to like adjust to. I've just always done, like I've always,
which is like a crazy feat in
Yeah,
itself,
it
really.
totally
And it's
is.
funny because like sometimes like we'll be driving and my parents will be like just like close one of their eyes to be like, wow, this is like what you do. And it's like,
Wow.
I can't even imagine what it's like to see out of two eyes. I can't even imagine like what it's like to,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just like so weird for me to think. Like
Yeah.
people ask me like, oh well what's like, I'm like, well, I don't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Oh wow, I hadn't even considered that. That's like, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like, so in terms of your experience, I feel like we sort of touched on it when you were younger, but how do you think that shapes like your view on like self-confidence?
Yeah, and I think that honestly every day that I live, like I become like more, not like accepting of it, but like more, I feel like as a kid I was very self-conscious about it. Like when people would ask me like, you know, like, why are you like that? I'd be like, oh, I don't know. Like I literally didn't know what to say. Like I would be like, no, there's nothing wrong. Like it's real. Like but now it's just like, I don't know, I feel like it's not something I can change. It's not something that takes away from how well I do in school or how many friends I have or like all the other great things in life. Like it's just something that I've been able to embrace. And like that's not to say that like it doesn't go unnoticed. I still like look at myself and like, oh, like my eyebrow like goes like a little bit down on this side and like my eyelashes are like a little bit different on this side. So it's like it is something I obviously still like don't always love. But then at the same time, you know, like there's so many people that are like, oh, I would never notice. Like it just looks so
Yeah,
real.
I didn't notice.
No, I
at
didn't
all.
notice.
Yeah.
When I first met you, I didn't notice either.
Same.
It's like, I'm honestly also amazed because like I mentioned my ocularist Daphne in Toronto, which it's kind of a funny story. Her son-in-law Matt, who was like, I think he was doing his apprenticeship when I was like first came in, so he was really young. So her daughter married this guy named Matt, and now he works on my eye.
Oh.
So because Daphne's like, she's kind of getting to the age where she might retire soon. So yeah, it's kind of cool. Like they've been working on it for like 21 years of my life.
That's
Like
so
from when
cool.
I came in like as a little baby,
That
I was
is
probably like
crazy.
yeah, but she does like such an amazing job. Like I don't know how I've like thought like, because I did a lot of art in high school and I'm like, you know what, that'd be like such a crazy thing to do. Like it's just so intricate, and there's like, if you look really close, like she even has like the gold specks in there.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
crazy. And
It's so
your eye color changes throughout your life.
Yeah.
So it's updated every few years. But no,
Wow.
she does an amazing job.
Yeah.
incredible.
Well, your eyes
Yeah.
are beautiful.
They are.
So.
No, yeah, it's crazy. Like she has ears and noses, and she's
Wow.
a very, very talented woman. And I'm very grateful that there's someone out there who, like, Toronto is not that far from Ottawa. People travel from all over to see her, to get that type of stuff done.
Yeah.
So, it's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
It is.
Wow.
You seem like you have like a lot of like gratitude and
Yeah, and
that
again,
kind of
like
outlook.
I think it's taken like a really long time. Like that's something that like I still think will develop over a
Mhm.
lifetime. And I
Of
think
course.
now, like I said, like every year I go in, they're like, you're kind of at an age where you're more at risk of like these type of like bone cancers or this type of whatever. Now I'm kind of getting to an age where the conversations, and I don't go annually anymore because you get past a certain point where it's like you're not quite at risk until like maybe I'm older. Then it's like there's breast cancer and skin cancer and those that come later. But right now the big conversation is like what, like family planning, and it's like obviously that's like within the next like 10-15 years of my life, but it's like that's a scary thing to encounter because
Of course.
it's like those are more the conversations now, like, oh, when you want to go have a kid, like, you know, this is what you need to look out for this. But at the same time, I think everything can be flipped into, well, you know what, like at least I know, at least I have the support from like these amazing doctors and my family to like know what to do. It doesn't take away from being able to have a family, but as opposed to like my parents, like it was literally just a genetic blip. Like it wasn't, we don't have cancer history in my family. I was my parents' firstborn, so like it was very just out of nowhere. They very new for everyone.
Yeah, that must
So
have
it's
been
like,
really
you
scary.
know, at least I know, like at least there's the resources now, and like with medicine like advancing so quickly, like by the time I have a kid, maybe there'll be like certain things that I can do that are, you know.
Yeah.
But
And that's like really scary. Like you talk about how you almost have to like think of these things now that might be or
just,
consider
like,
them.
Yeah, obviously I don't want to think about like like I'm not like considering having a kid now, but it's like, well, that's like in the
Yeah.
future to think about.
But it seems like you have such like a I don't know the right word, but like a good outlook on like where you are and how far you've came, that like I feel like that'll just carry with you throughout whatever's to come in terms of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I guess when we like wrap up, this has been an awesome chat, and we're so grateful that you dedicated the time to go and share your story. But if you could give one piece of advice to a child currently undergoing treatment for retinoblastoma, what would it be?
I think that like I would tell them, like, again, it's one of those things where it could go so many ways. Like if it hadn't progressed to maybe the point that I had, they maybe don't have to lose an eye, maybe they lose both eyes. Either way, I think that like just being like strong in the moment. I've always been told, like, I always like laughed to my parents, like, oh, you're just like, you were so strong. I'm like, well, I don't even like remember being a baby, and like this, like, I wasn't really doing anything, like it wasn't like me, you know what I mean? But I think, yeah, just like having that strength and resilience in the moment like goes a really long way, and with the support of like close friends and family, it's not really like you can really overcome anything. Yeah, like I think that could come in like a variety of different forms, but maybe for someone who might have to lose an eye, like it does obviously come with its challenges, and I think that I do personally think it would be like much harder to lose at like the age of 8 as opposed to like a newborn, because it's something that like you have 8 years of experience living with both eyes. It's like living with one leg or with one arm. It's something that you would have to like adapt to and like change the way that you live every day.
Yeah.
But it is possible, and I don't let it take away from like anything else in my life. Like I've like I said, always loved playing competitive sports and always like been very involved in everything. So I think that as long as you kind of embrace it, that it's not that bad. But
no, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this has been a great chat, and I know like even just being on the committee, obviously we all know each other to some degree, but it's really nice sort of sitting down and having like a sort of like formal conversation about these things, because I feel like I've learned even more about you.
Yeah, I think one thing I want to mention is kind of I don't know how it really tied into any of your questions, but that I thought was kind of a funny story. It's one of my favorite stories, is that so when I was in high school, I had a friend, I remember so distinctly, like I think it was like, I might have been in grade 12 at the time. And it was my grade 12 art class, and my one like close friend, and we were talking, and she's like, you know what, like my brother's girlfriend has this friend, and she just looks so similar to you. Like she kind of has like that strawberry blonde hair. She's like freckles, like very similar features, and she's like, I need to show you this girl. Like you guys just look like so similar.
Yeah.
She showed me her Instagram. She's like, you know what? Like not to make you uncomfortable. Like I think she has a prosthetic eye. She's like, I think that like I heard through my brother's girlfriend that she has a prosthetic eye. I'm like, there's no way. So like up until grade 12, and like of course my mom has always been part of like retinoblastoma groups on Facebook, and like obviously like growing up in the hospital, like we do know people like more online who have like experienced retinoblastoma and have like a prosthetic eye, but I've never up until grade 12 actually known someone. So I went on her Instagram and like looking at all her photos, I'm like, I can't tell. Like I'm like, it doesn't look like she has a prosthetic.
Yeah, just like yours.
Exactly.
So I ended up like, I'm like, there's no way I can't like, and it said, so I was in grade 12 at the time, I accepted my offer at Queen's. She went to Queen's, and she was in Queen's Commerce. She graduated last year, but I ended up DMing her. I was like, this feels weird even coming from me, but like I'm Makenna, like I go to Sacred, like she was up from Ottawa. And I'm like, I heard like kind of through like mutual friends like that you have a prosthetic eye. I'm just like, and for me it's like, that's my worst fear, someone like saying that to me. But I was like, but don't worry, like so do I. And like I'd really love to get to know you. Like so we ended up like adding each other, like grabbing each other's number, and like she is just the most like bright person ever. And she lost her left eye at 4. So a little later. So I think she described as like still being able to dream with both eyes. So like she actually still kind of remembers. So that was like the one big difference. But other than that, I remember like so distinctly in grade 12, like being up so late and texting each other about like
Oh.
such similar experiences. Like she'd be like, oh my god, like this is the exact same thing.
Oh wow.
So then my first year at Queens, at like one of the football games at the very beginning of the year, we like texted like, oh my god, we need to meet each other in person. Like we've met at Queens now, and since then like have gone for coffee and seen each other.
That's
Like
so incredible.
and she just has, I think she honestly like put such a different outlook on it for me. Like she travels a lot, she does a lot of crazy stuff. She's just such a happy, bright person, and she's like, she really embraces it. So I honestly think like that was a huge turning point for me, is meeting someone like, she's only a year older than me. We have a lot of the same interests. I think like she danced a lot too. And it was honestly like such a life-changing moment, like meeting someone who like is so similar to me.
Yeah.
And one distinct thing for me was like we went for coffee last year when we were both in Ottawa, and said she lost her left eye. When we're talking, we're like looking at the real eye with our real eyes. So it's just like,
oh yeah.
because when you're switched, so I'm like, it was honestly just such a cool experience, and like I still keep in touch with her. Like I'm gonna see her when I go home for the summer and stuff. So she's graduated now, but
so nice.
she's honestly like really enhanced my outlook on all of it, because like I look at her and I'm like, wow, you're beautiful. Like I would be the person to notice, and I still wouldn't really notice.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I bet
it's worth mentioning because she's been a huge part of the past like 4 years of my life.
That's so incredible.
I feel like I can see you doing the exact same thing for someone, and you're probably doing it right now without even knowing.
Yeah, someone's watching this and listening to this story, and it's like, wow, like this incredible, sunshiny, like inspiring person is like accomplishing so many great things with her prosthetic eye. Like I can do that too.
Yeah. Oh God, that was such a great story there.
I didn't really tie into any of the questions, but I wanted to mention it because it honestly
perfect.
Yeah, I feel like as I grow up, like every day I become like more grateful of the circumstances, and like just been able to embrace it as like, you know what, like this isn't a flaw, it's just a difference. And like there are people who have one arm or who have one leg, and it's like for me it could be so much worse. So yeah.
Oh well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Makenna.
For sharing your story, Makenna.